This is the 17th season of Bass Talk Live with your hosts, Mark Jeffries and Matt Pingrack. BTL is brought to you by Lawrence, Bass Cat Boats, APCO, Ducket Fishing, Strike King Lures, Sunline, Big Bite Baits, Spro, X-Zone Lures, Yamagatsu, The Bass Tank, and Denali Rods. BTL coming at you. Good Monday, everybody. Welcome once again to another edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where Matt and I are going to talk bass fishing and anything else that we want to talk about. No, the man to my right is actually to my right on the screen. Matthew's in Tulsa. He's got stuff going on up there. But, Matt, another great week of BTL right here.
It warms my heart to see that the sweater vest has officially made a return.
No, it's not the sweater vest. It's a shirt.
Oh, it's a shirt.
It's
sweater vest.
No, man, it's just a Nike polo. It's official team gear here. You know, school is back in session.
But it looks like a sweater vest.
It does, but it's not.
In a shirt.
In a polo, but it's not.
That? Did you ask
I did
for
not.
That?
No, actually, this is like
I bet you had to
a couple
just
years old.
Jazzed when you saw that in the catalog.
No, actually, I didn't pick these out. I have nothing to do with the gear that gets ordered. It was back when.
What is going on in the background? Are you at like the Great Outdoor Game?
No, man, I did some.
Pop in and ask for water.
No. I did some chopping. I did some chainsawing, and I just drug all the limbs out to the side of the house because
you did the chainsaw.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Huh.
But and massive pile of limbs. But here in our city, they give you 1 day a year to have yard pickup, is what they call it.
Ah, that makes sense.
But they couldn't get my yard pickup for another month. So I was like, forget that, man. I'll just have somebody come out and chop it up and haul it off. So that's what they're doing this morning.
I got you.
So chainsaws in the background.
No snakes or animals or anything during the whole.
I saw a frog.
Really?
That was it.
Did I tell you that the other day last week I was out feeding the horses, and Kinder was out there, and she said, "Hey, bring the shovel." And I said,
"Snake?
Huh? Yeah."
Snake.
Well, this is the crazy thing. It was in their barn, like where we walk every single day. Like it's nice mat on the floor.
Yeah.
It's not like, it's nice in there.
Yeah.
And it was a baby copperhead.
Ooh.
Like, you know how you see a snake and you're like, is that thing poisonous? And you kind of poke it and you're like, you either decide, it's going to be a poisonous one or not. No, this was like 100% a baby copperhead.
Is it true about the triangle head?
Oh, yeah. They're like
is that what it is?
A viper, like a pit viper.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then the little ones apparently can't regulate their venom. So, yeah, that was scary. But I was wondering if you ever run across any,
No snakes, man.
Woods and water.
The creek, I know.
Background. A lot of place for nature.
No snakes. I'll tell you this much, though. I was wiped. I was absolutely wiped out afterwards. It was exhausting doing all that. And I took a picture of the pile of limbs. I'll send it to you after the show. It's massive.
I got you. Hey, we have new Carhartt College Bass National Champions presented by Bass Pro Shops.
Carhartt. Which one is this? Is this the bass one?
I'll tell you what this is. How many words do you think are in the title?
8.
11.
Oh, I was close.
It is the Carhartt Bassmaster College Series National Championship presented by Bass Pro Shops.
Holy moly.
Anyway, they were out of Waddington, New York, and they couldn't go to the lake. I did clear that with some people, which
just
is
in the river.
A smart move by Hank, because that's an hour drive, and then college kids. But 63-10 to win. They basically went a little over 20. Hayden Scott and Griffin Fernandez from Adrian College. Now I have a little bit. Adrian College were really tough to play club hockey against. They're a really good hockey team.
Where's it at?
I don't know.
Is it in Alabama?
No.
No?
It's up north.
Okay.
I'll look it up. Hold on.
Canada. It's not
No.
Canada. Do they let Canadian teams compete?
I don't know.
I always wondered that.
Where
Canadian schools?
About Us.
No. Man, they are getting after it with that chainsaw.
Yeah,
Jeez.
they absolutely are.
Michigan. Somebody's saying
Yeah,
Michigan.
That makes sense because
Okay.
they're always really good at hockey. And then, so then the top 4 teams then go to the bracket. So there's 8 guys that are now alive for the probably the 2022 Classic, which would be on Hartwell, right?
All right.
Later this year. So one of them
Bracket
is
showdown.
Tristan McCormick, who it's interesting. I actually got to know him in 2019. We stayed next to each other at Table Rock. And he looks like a mountain man, and I thought he was like my age, and it turned out at the time he was like 19. But
Wow.
he stayed up there and caught him really well to him and his teammate from Bethel. Shockingly.
Yeah.
So the 4 teams that are left standing are Adrian, Bethel, Auburn, and Clarkson. So
Clarkson?
Clarkson, yes.
Okay.
You know where that is?
No. Where's that at?
I don't know.
Oh, I thought you knew. That's the only reason.
James, is it Gillis? How would you say this? Gillis. Is it? Do you go hockey and say like Gillies?
Gillies?
Giles?
Yeah.
Gillis? I mean, there's 3 options right there.
I don't know.
And Craig Bouclair.
Don't know.
They
Anyway.
finished in 4th, and then
I wonder if
Crosby
I wonder if they have college
James
teams in Canada.
Hobbs.
Why don't you
Good question.
find out from your buddy Mercer and see if they do in Canada. Is there a collegiate team in Canada that has a
Here's a question. So
bass
we saw what, and this will transition into today's show, which we have a really good one. We saw what Jordan Lee and Matt Lee, both of them, did at Auburn. What do you think Jacob Wheeler would have done if he had decided to go to Indiana or Purdue or wherever, because he's from Indianapolis? Do you think he would have dominated college fishing like the Lees?
Yes.
Yeah.
I told you, man. He's going to dominate a cereal eating contest. It doesn't matter.
I can't remember. I was going to look something up, but I have no idea what I was going to. Oh, yeah, no, I do.
It doesn't matter, man.
We have him on the show today, by the way. He's a fresh off
do.
of his back-to-back BPT wins in New York. I believe it is his 3rd win of the season, and he is just racking up money. I think we talked about it last time. Remember, I was like, dude, you ever just sit back and you're like, I'm freaking rich? And you remember I said that?
Oh.
And he was like, man, he's like, it's more about the process.
Dude, people that have Jack, they don't do that. If you have a lot of money, you embrace the challenge that lies ahead. You don't bask in what you have. You are motivated to continue.
There's some. If you're in the rap game, they tend to bask. Like you see everyone. If you're in the reality TV game, they tend to bask.
Well, I can't see Jacob cutting some new tracks or being on Big Brother or something like that.
If you're in the fight game, they tend to bask.
Yeah.
Conor
Money.
McGregor?
Yeah.
Any of those reality TV shows on Bravo?
Yeah. Well, it's definitely earned. And I'm sure all the other people out there that are doing quite well, it's definitely earned. Obviously, with some things. The important thing is, I said there is some luck involved.
Yeah.
But I think with Jacob, it is a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication to the game that he is mastering very well. What are you looking at?
The comments. I just pulled up the YouTube over here because I got to have 6 screens because I have the college national championship. I have a Google search for where is Adrian, and then I have our screen.
So Adrian, they're telling us that Adrian is near St. Clair.
No,
that
it's much closer to
Ohio border. Oh, then
yeah.
St. Clair. All right.
Yeah.
I just glanced at it. All right, and then tomorrow, good show tomorrow too.
Who do we have tomorrow? We have Odd Defo. We
You
have the
booked
guy
it.
Yeah, I know. We have the guy that is somehow beating Jacob Wheeler in the points, correct?
That is correct.
And Ott's another one of those young guys. Let's pull up the points here.
And then Wednesday, who do we have?
Oh man, that's a lot of ass. Oh, so Wednesday we got a cool show. We got Clark Ream. Clark's been around for forever. He's fishing the pro circuit. He fished the Opens last year. I know that, but he's got Elite Angler Academy. Got a lot of cool stuff going on, and I think it would be really cool. We have not had Clark on in a while. We have had him on in the past to kind of talk about some kind of new and innovative things that he has done to stay relevant and pay the bills and continue to make a career in this industry he's pushing 2 decades now doing it. So
yeah, he has been around. I remember, man, long time ago, he actually lived by Dardanelle.
Yeah.
And we went by his house there in Dardanelle. I remember seeing his tackle room, and man, that was a long time ago. And you're right. He's been a grinder and a survivor in this game.
I mean, remember, he almost won a classic. He was like right there in the mix to win a classic.
Yeah.
But dude, kind of a quick story, not the reason we're having him on, but last year when I was fishing the Opens, I had, at Neely Henry, I made the top 12 cut, had a bait that I only had one left of. And it was like something you couldn't just go buy. And I mentioned it, and he was talking to Brad, and Brad didn't have any of them. And I mentioned it to him, and he's like, no, dude, I got him. Come on. The weigh-in wasn't over yet, so he could still give it. And he gave me just a handful of these baits. Like, he had no reason to absolutely do that. He was done. So I thought that was really cool of him. So.
Very nice.
So yeah, Clark Ream, Ott Defo, and then Jacob Wheeler today.
All right. Then Seth Feider next week, right? Is that correct?
Yes, but we have to call and remind him.
Well, it's been a while since you booked it.
I have gotten a lot of good requests for potential guests, possible guests, one of which 100% we need to have on, which we got Jim sent an email to me about, which is Matt Stefan.
Mm-hmm.
Did you read those emails?
Yes. Yeah.
That kind of piqued my interest. Did you know any of that backstory?
I did not. So
I can work on that. The thing is, like, going into next week, a lot of the guys are at the not the Forest Wood Cup, the MLF championship, the Pro Circuit championship there at La Crosse. So if they qualified for that, there's a lot of BPT guys that are fishing in that too. So.
Hey, check this out real quick, and then we're going to take a break and come back with Jacob. I bowled in a tournament on Saturday, and dude, I found myself thinking about fishing when I was bowling because I have a really huge mental barrier that I just can't seem to get over. And I started thinking about fishing. Dude, I was averaging 230 going into game 5 of 8.
Okay, so you're doing really well.
I'm doing really well, man. I'm like up in the top, and I've always had this challenge since my accident that when you move lanes after each game, my barrier has been trying to get lined up. It's like when conditions change on the lake from day to day, and you have to have that knowledge base and that confidence to totally change things up, or have that knowledge base to where instead of fishing deep, you know what, things have changed, I'm going to move up shallow and I'm going to start fishing grass and just totally ditch everything. Or another example from a fishing standpoint, and this is what I was thinking about, is you got to catch 20 pounds to even have a chance in getting a check, and you're just catching 15, 14.
Story of my life.
2-pounder, 2.5. 2.5, and you're going, what the heck is going on? How come I can't get a big bite? Well, that game where I moved, I go split, 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 washout. First 5 frames, open. And I'm done. And that's the way this thing is, dude. It's like fishing on those smallmouth fisheries where if you're not catching 19, 20 pounds, 20 plus, you have no chance. Well, when I did not, and there's some mental blockage right now where I can't make the move from going deep to shallow, I started thinking about that. Here I am, in the probably top 5, and I just bite the big one. And it is mentally exhausting to see that happen the last 3 events that I've been in. And I can't imagine from a fishing standpoint, especially when you're trying to make it to that next level, when it's not a physical thing, it's not an equipment thing, it is a mental thing that I was on the phone just like you, because you've talked about it. On the way home from tournaments, you talk to a lot of people. I did the same thing. And it is a very mental barrier that I have to overcome if I want to, shoot for the senior tour in 2022. I don't know what the deal is. It wasn't an equipment issue. It was just a total mental collapse, and I have nobody to blame but myself.
I think 99% of people in any athletic endeavor deal with that.
Yeah.
99.8.
It's tough. And I got a huge event on Saturday and Sunday this weekend, so talked to a couple people about it, and man, I just got to fight through it. And fortunately, it's not costing me a lot of money because I still have been able to, cover the costs. And I mean, money's not the issue. It's the issue of trying to get yourself prepared for that next level and getting past the barriers that are enormously challenging. Just like in fishing, it's the same thing. So you think Jacobs had those mental barriers?
Yeah,
we might
100%.
Talk a little bit about that because, dude, his off-the-water game and mental game is obviously one of the best in the biz.
Everyone deals with it differently.
Yeah. It's challenging. Okay. Now that I don't know what they're doing now. They're running some other machine out there.
Oh, they're probably blowing the wood chips off.
Doesn't sound like a chainsaw. All right, we're gonna take a break and come back with Jacob Wheeler. Do what?
Does it sound like a leaf blower?
Might be.
They're probably making sure your driveway's all nice and pretty.
I'll try to send you the picture during the break, dude. It was massive. It was That's a massive pile.
It's good for you.
Oh, I was wore out. All right, folks, we're gonna take a break. Come back with Jacob Wheeler here on a Monday. Everybody, stay tuned.
Puts the full range of Lowrance fish finding tools at your fingertips. Find fish with active imaging 3-in-1 with Fish Reveal. Target fish with active target live sonar and watch fish react to your lure as it happens. Built-in C-Map Contour Plus charts make it easy to find key fishing areas. But best-in-class charts and powerful sonar is only the beginning. It's easy to build your fully networked FS system. From sonar and waypoint sharing to controlling the Ghost trolling motor and power poles. Lowrance Elite FS. Targeting fish just got easier.
BassCat's legendary 20-foot platform has been paired with angler-approved accessories for 2021. Puma FTD features the proven hull used by many of the top names in bass fishing today, backed by a transferable lifetime warranty. The Puma FTD boasts a full team deck concept which enhances efficiency for you and your tournament partners. Turnkey tournament-winning performance. The Puma FTD SP from BassCat.
I've been living on the water for over 20 years.
For 14 years.
For over 23 years.
I've worn a bunch of different clothing brands over the years.
Some companies big.
And some companies small.
All of them said they were making clothing for us.
But none of them knew us.
None of them were us.
Except for one.
Except for one.
Except one.
AFCO.
AFCO.
AFCO. AFCO.
Fishing isn't part of us. It is us.
Everyone, Brandon Polnick here. People always be asking me what I got tied on. I'm like, X-Zone Lures. And they're like, Brandon, why you got X-Zone Lures tied on? And I'm like, let me show you why.
The bite.
Get out of there. Get out of there. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's pretty big. Get in here. Oh, God. Giant. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh.
I think you get the point.
Pro-inspired, pro-designed. Tested and proven by legends on the water. Dominating the tournament trail for over 50 years. Everything you need, one legendary brand. Strike King.
Hey guys, Major League Fishing Pro Jacob Wheeler here with my new Signature Series line of rods with Ducket Fishing. We have my 7.2 cranking rod right here. Crankbaits can be very fickle, and having the right, having a lot of tip can be too much, and having not enough tip can, lose a lot of fish. So you really got to be careful. If there's one or two techniques that I'm really adamant about having the perfect action is a crankbait, especially like a square bill, a DT6, those medium running crankbaits in the springtime when those fish's mouth are pretty tough. That's when I'm really on top of having my actions just perfect.
All right, we are back, kicking off the week. I'm in studio, Matt's in Tulsa, and it is time to go to our special guest. And let's hopefully I can press the right button here. Let's bring him in now. Jacob, how you doing, man?
Well, what about it, guys? Doing really well, man. Just sitting here in the garage, doing a little bit of organizing on this Monday morning, and hopping on, hang out with y'all.
All right. Well, once again, thanks for taking time out. Dude, you're starting to become a regular on this show. You keep winning.
That's a good thing. That's a dang good
That is a good thing. That's a great thing. All right, let's get something straightened out. How many red trophies is that? 5? Is that right?
5 of them.
All right, and where are all 5 of the trophies?
So I have a couple of them in my living room right now, and I have they're all just sort of scattered out. I have them basically. The other 3 are down there in my trophy room, but the 2 that I haven't really put them down there yet.
Yeah. All right. A couple of questions, then I'm going to send it to you, Matt. Obviously, the latest win that you have, surpassing the century mark once again. What can you tell the fans about just the mental game that you are going through with it? Just seems like the confidence is oozing every time that you're on the water. Is this a point that you get to, or is this something that just happens? How can you explain it, Jacob?
I think that everybody goes through those hot streaks, if you will. I mean, you look at some of the people that I look back in the day. I look at Edwin Evers, I look at Kevin Van Dam, look at Skeet Reese, where Skeet won back-to-back. I think it was Gunnersville and Smith Mountain. I think Edwin won Kentucky Lake and went up north to the St. Lawrence River and won very different kinds of fisheries. I'm sure there's a couple more that Mark Rose and the FLW Tour that back in the day. I think there's just something that just clicks, and everything has to align. It's something that it's really hard to put your finger on it. Obviously, if you could reproduce it all the time, you would. But there's a lot of things that come into that. There's a lot of variables in bass fishing, and I think at the end of the day, it just, you have the confidence. You're making good decisions. You're understanding the game very well. You're reading patterns very well. Little small bites, turn into patterns. And I think the biggest thing is you don't second guess any decision you make. You just go. And I think a lot of times we overthink things as bass fishermen. And right now it's just like, I get a vibe on something and I do it. I don't second guess it. I don't think about it for 2-3 hours. I sit there and I'm like, yep, that's the deal. Let's roll. And sometimes it's wrong, sometimes it's right, but it's been right these last little bit for sure.
All right, final question, and then I'll send it to Matt. Not of the interview, obviously, but I want to make sure Matt has some time in there. I'm curious, Jacob, what do you think your weakness is right now? Do you have a weakness?
I have plenty of weaknesses. I mean, I have to work on every technique. It's tough. I mean, there's I was thinking about this of like I always think of the things that I need to work on, because that's the biggest thing that you look at your weaknesses. I feel like shallow water, shallow muddy water is something that I want to work on a little bit more. So I was like sitting here thinking about where I wanted to go this couple weeks off. I was like, I can go slide up in some of the rivers and not current related, because I understand the current very well, but more just stagnant water. So just understanding key pieces of cover. That's something that I want to play around with. There's a lot of things that you just have to work on as an angler, and I think, but those are, shallow water, shallow grass. I would say that's another thing. That mid-depth grass is something that I would like to spend more time on as well.
All right, Matt.
This last stage, we've seen you in the past kind of really jump out and be like, oh, here comes Wheeler. But I mean, you didn't exactly struggle, but you only had 31 pounds kind of in the first round. And it seemed like you kind of figured it out a little bit more as the tournament went on and on and on. Kind of talk about that evolution over this past one, as opposed to how many times we've seen you kind of letting off the gas. You had to kind of figure it out over the first 2 days, and then it seemed like you figured it out more and more as guys like Matt Lee and stuff who had it super dialed in, like kind of stepped back, and it was just like a flip-flop from the beginning to the end.
I've learned, so other than the St. Lawrence River where you had to sort of be dialed in, it's such a vast fishery, I had it narrowed down in practice to a general area of where I was going to fish on Lake Champlain. I've spent hundreds of days, probably I thought about it about 100 days on Lake Champlain in my lifetime. And so I've spent a lot of time up there. I understand that body of water, but it's constantly changing, and water levels dictate so much. So history can really hurt you, and it can help you, especially on northern fisheries. I feel like where things don't change as much, the rock piles, the places, I would say history helps you more often than not. But with more pressure coming to a lot of these bodies of water, those same places, like an isolated rock, more people have that rock than 20 or 5 years ago. More people have those rock piles, those places that are out of the way, because more people are dialed into their electronics and understand things to the next level. So I started to realize, like, okay, I have a lot of things I want to run in this tournament. And day one was sort of a practice day, if you will. Day one was, I spent enough time. I had 2 days of practice. One day it blew, one day it was flat. I had an idea of what was going on, but I've learned not to dial it in the tournament or in practice. You want to dial it in the tournament, especially in a BPT event when you're talking 6 days from day one of Group A to the championship day. You don't want to dial things in, because obviously, especially up north where you're talking about a body of water that when we got there was 68 degrees and when we left it was 75. These fish are constantly moving. In a week's time, these fish, like, in their season, that's like a month down south, when you really look in relation to how much time they have and what changes in the bait movement, all those things. So that's where I was at. And as I sort of progressed through the event, the first day was pretty bumpy. The second day, I was able to sort of move around a little bit more, and I sort of eliminated a few things that I thought were going to play, and they did not. And there's a couple bites that happened that I realized sort of what was going on. And you just sort of like get those little, just one, my buddy of mine always told me, a buddy of mine in Indiana has always told me, it's like, hey, listen, one bite's a fluke, two's a pattern. And so, like, there's a lot of times you'll be out there fishing and you'll get one bite. You're like, I think that's the deal. But then when you get a second bite, maybe and a third bite even more so, you're like, yep, that's the deal. So as I sort of dialed in, like, that drop shot game, some of these fish were around, these real small isolated patches of grass that you really would have even a hard time looking at electronics, but I could pan over there and see the perch and the smallmouth would be close by. I started to realize how much they were really relating to some of those places. And some of them were out in no man's land, away from stuff. So you just had to slowly but surely figure it out. In each location, they were on different things. Some were on perch, some were on ally, some were on a rock, some were on edges of grass. Each individual place was completely different.
Okay, two questions. The first one was, I believe the last time we had you on, you were up at Champlain pre-practicing. But it was like during a BPT event, you had the day off. Was it the St. Lawrence River? You had the day off. You went up there just for the day, even though you said you'd had like 100 days on it. Did any of that stuff pay off at all to go up there early to take that time when you could have just been like, I'm going to chill out here because I'm, pretty much have this derby on lockdown, but you chose to go up to Lake Champlain and then did an interview with us and we're on MLF. Did that help at all, you think?
It did. But it really helped me eliminate more than it helped me find more things.
Okay.
It helped me eliminate. And the other thing was, as I watched like the events unfold up there, I realized like there's certain places I like to fish up there, but seeing like the elite guys fish up there and then seeing the Toyota series, I could tell what areas were destroyed very quickly. You could tell and understand, like, okay, these fish have gotten a crazy amount of pressure in this zone. These fish in some of the areas I like to fish have not. It doesn't look like it's been exposed as much. And so you start to formulate a game plan months ahead just off of what events were up there, and knowing the fishery as I do, I try to sort of adjust game plans accordingly.
All right, second question. This is more of a fishing education question. You mentioned alewives, and there's all sorts of different species of bait fish up there, and you're from Indiana, so you're dealing with like threadfin, and then you've got like gizzard shad, and you're on the TVA now with like skipjack and all sorts of weird stuff. So like when you go up north, and I've had an issue with this because I just did the open on Oneida, and they've got some different types of bait fish that they follow around up there, and then you throw the gobies in. How much research do you do about the forage base and how the fish relate to those forage bases? Because like if you might know what they eat, but then do you study how those bait fish move and how that affects the fish and stuff? Is that something you just pick up over time? You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, but it's
not one thing to know that they're eating alewives, but what does that mean? What does that mean that the fish do? Like, do you?
There's not enough information out there on the internet consistently to give you a complete understanding of how those fish are going to relate to that bait fish. So that's something, but I will tell you this, a lot of those fish relate to like from what I've seen of my own personal experiences, like fishing highland reservoirs and fishing areas with rock and bait, they related it the exact same way. Like it was like just as much as fishing table rock and smallmouth, I could see how they were acting with the rock and the fish. And to be honest with you, forward facing sonar, that's changed the whole game of understanding fish behavior more now than ever before. So the information that you gather since that's come out and watching fish and seeing how they react to clouds of bait and rock piles and current and wind is more valuable to me. I took some of the situations of what I've actually seen on highland reservoirs on a rock pile where there was alewives moving through and utilized actually those days I fished for smallmouth on highland reservoirs and took that up there, and it seemed to work just as well.
All right. I watched a little bit of the final day of the last event, and it wasn't rough, but it wasn't calm. Yeah. And there were some times that, you were kind of doing this. All right. What can you pass on to the fans and me also about the technique that it takes when you're experiencing that type of motion on the boat? You know, how difficult is it? Is it obviously physically demanding, but still to be able to fish that style and that pattern when you do have some adversity taking place? What advice could you give the fans and myself?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is I look at adversity as a challenge. I like adversity. I like things not going as planned. Some of my best days on the water, I remember a Bass Open I fished on the James River, and I had a lower unit go out, and I called the tournament director, and I had my co-angler with me, and he's like, dude, I'm like 7 miles from the Chickahominy. I'm like, dude, we're going to catch them. I don't care. We're going to have enough time. And I'm like, I'm trolling the Chickahominy River. And and he's like, and I called the tournament director, and actually one of the guys from Evinrude came down and put my boat on the trailer, swapped it out at a ramp down there. And we caught a limit before we even got there to the ramp. We both had a limit, like just on the trolling motor. I'm like, dude, just calm down. Like, we're going to catch them. It's not a big deal. We're only going to have a couple hours of fishing, but you start to process the information that you have. Okay, this is what I have. This is the amount of time I have. Now, what can I do with this time to give myself the best result that I possibly can? You don't freak out. Oh, my tournament's done. Oh, this stuff's, oh my gosh. The problem is with a lot of people, they take negativity and they run with it, and it controls their mind. It's the mental game behind this sport that people don't completely understand. If you have a positive outlook and you look at it, okay, this is the negative, this is what I have. Now there's a solution, this is what I can do, and that's the challenge, go do it. That's how I always look at it. Now, if you can I didn't know what the conditions were going to be like. The wind was whipping pretty solid in the morning. It flattened off later in the day. Mm-hmm. And it's all trial and error. Like, I knew that I could fish in some of the open water stuff that I was fishing, but I didn't know how well I was going to be efficient. And I wasn't as efficient as I would have if it would have been flat calm, because I could not stay on certain places that I wanted to as easy as I could in previous days. So that's more of a mindset thing that you have to sort of get over in each. That's the mental side of the sport that I love, that it really makes a difference between angler to angler.
It's still really difficult, though, is it not, to be able to look at your electronics when, the transducer's going all over the place and you're trying to stay focused, you're trying to maintain your position. Yeah, obviously spot lock and, the ability with some of the trolling motors of today, but still physically demanding and really challenging to be able to continue to use that technique when you do have those conditions. I get everything you're saying, but for the weekend guy that experiences maybe one of those situations, what's the best advice that you could give him?
I mean, you either can do it or you can't. Like,
okay.
You get out there and you're like, there's no way I can be efficient with this water, with 5 foot waves. Then you're just at the point where you're going to have to make adjustments and go. Like, that's how I look at it. Like, so if I got out there and I realized fairly quickly, like, I could spot lock, but then I'm also sitting here taking waves to the front of the boat. I can't move forward. So I have to adjust my boat positioning accordingly. I have to get upwind. I have to drift a little bit more than I'd like to on some of these places to actually get to the specific location and be there for a little while. Water's coming over the boat, water's getting bilged out constantly. It's you either can or you can't. Like, it's you get there, and the only way you figure it out is actually putting yourself in that position. But what happens is, when you get out in those conditions, you realize you can, and then that confidence builds, and it's just sort of out of your mind. It's not even affecting you, because it's just like, all right, I got to catch these fish, and let's go make it happen. And then you get used to the conditions. You're just in the conditions, and it's part of the deal. And you're just like, I can do this. And it's still a mental thing. There's not like if you get on the front of the boat, you get up there, like, some people need a butt seat. Get a butt seat. Some people, I don't like to have a butt seat personally. I don't use a butt seat. Even if it's 6 foot waves, I just don't do it. I just personal preference. It comes down to each individual angler in that situation. Some people, when I'm 50 years old, I might need a butt seat. When I'm 45, I might need a butt seat. I mean, it just is what it is. It's all different for each individual angler and the physicalities that it takes to be able to take care of it. But it is mental as well.
All right. One more question, Matt, and then I'll send it to you. Interesting comment on the instant feedback from Jeff. He says, I remember being at the ramp when Jacob was a kid, running around asking to be able to fish with someone. Killed me to tell him my tournament partner was on the way. Do you remember any of those stories, Jacob?
Oh, trust me. Listen, so I used to ride my bike when I was 13, 14 years old to a local ramp, White River. And I was always just trying. I didn't have a lot of money. I just tried to, like, grab my rods and my tackle bag. And I would always like, man, you got a tournament partner this week? You got a tournament partner this week? And there was a couple guys that didn't have tournament partners, but they're like, dude, I didn't know. I mean, like, let's be honest with you. Like, you don't want to take a kid and be like responsible for this kid at 14 years old. And not everybody wants to do that. And I completely understand. But I actually had met my two tournament partners because of those days I was out there. One was Brian Johnson, one was Greg Morehouse. And one of them was like, dude, you be here next week. I'm going to take you fishing. And those are my tournament partners I fished for my whole, growing up. And yeah, I remember that very vividly. That's something that I just wanted to go bass fishing. And I learned so much because of a lot of those people at the White River that took me for a day of fishing. And I saw, hey, this guy likes to fish finesse tactics. And this guy is a big topwater fisherman. And it just I understood more and more about the game the more people that you got a chance to fish with and learn little tidbits from.
That's cool. All right, Matt.
I mean, I might just be completely overlooking something here, but I mean, dude, you're at the top level here where like you look at KVD and there's like certain baits that he's synonymous with developing, and Ike is the same way with certain baits that he's in. Skeet has the same thing. But I look at you and there's not really a Jacob Wheeler bait that comes to my mind, like that you designed that is your signature series bait or something like that, like a crankbait or a spinner bait or a swim bait or something. Like, are you heavily involved in that? Is that stuff out there, or is that part of the game that you in the future are hoping to develop whole lines of baits and stuff that you become synonymous with?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing, now I am. I've been in a lot work with Rapala on PD stuff for years. I've worked with them with colors and everything. They don't have necessarily a signature series line with them. And Ott and I talk all the time about colors and actions and small details that make baits do certain things. So now I do have an opportunity. I am coming out with certain things through 13 Fishing with hard baits as well, signature series later on. And I'm constantly working on stuff right now. I have, 6 different prototypes of different baits of what I'm working on and the colors of this or that. I think it's something that it takes a lot of time. The PD side of this sport is something that you don't realize how much time and effort goes into it. It's something that I love. I love tinkering with tackle anyway. And I have a ton of tackle in this garage right here, right now. But yeah, I mean, it's something future plans to do that. But I mean, it's been a progression to get to that point.
Fair point though. I mean, you always see it's like the KVD 1.5 and like Ike special colors. You're like, well, I mean, not that some of it, but I mean, dude, I mean, it surprises me that you look at Jordan Lee and he's got all the champ stuff out with Berkeley and stuff. And I know you have some, but dude, like everything you touch, you win. You would think it would be like, oh, well, this is the Jacob Wheeler. And I did see you started the 13 Fishing thing. Is that kind of a new deal? Like, was that you promoting like the Jabberjaws and stuff that I saw now?
Well, they have multiple different hard baits within their lineup. The Jabberjaw, they have a little popping pop baits. There's a couple little baits that I really like that they have. Deeper, a Jabberjaw deep. They have a whole lineup of hard baits that are really good. The Loco Special, which I've, got a top 5 and Red Crest on throwing that jerk bait. I mean, they have some really good stuff, and they're working on some new stuff. And that's sort of just it's a Rapala / 13 Fishing. I started to sort of promote and talk about products that I use on both sides, and it gives me more options to where I can use a certain bait in a certain situation. And not every bait's going to work. A DT6 is not always going to work all the time. A Jabberjaw is not going to work all the time. So having more options is always great.
The other thing that I've also noticed about you and your kind of sponsor lineup is you're really diversified. Whereas it seems like a lot of the superstars fall under one umbrella: rods, reels, bait line, lures, techniques. Like you've got soft plastics and hooks and hard baits and rods and reels somewhere, and then you throw in the academy that has its whole umbrella underneath it. I mean, is that something intentional that you've done to kind of been diversified all around the industry instead of rely under, I guess, 10 brands under one umbrella?
Absolutely. That's a huge deal. When you get locked into necessarily one brand, it's very hard. Just giving, some of these professional anglers that are watching this or that are wanting to get into professional bass fishing, it's very hard to grow your value or grow your contracts individually when you have all of your contracts under one brand. But you have more bosses that way too. You have to work harder. You have more people you have to report to. You have more companies you're working with individually, and they are requiring you to do X, Y, Z. So, but the value is diversifying. It does make it easier to where, hey, if for some reason something happens to X company, you're only out one brand, not your whole deal.
Very nice. I'm curious, speaking of brands, who came up and developed the JW brand? The logo?
So
you remember
I
who did that?
Actually, so a buddy of mine in Indiana, after I won the Forcewood Cup, we designed, we put it up online, like my initials, and they worked on a logo, and it was like the hook and the hook and the anchor deal with the JW. And I just rolled with that from the get go. So that's sort of been my logo. It's been my logo since after the Forcewood Cup, and I think there's a lot to that. You know, you have to have your own brand. You have to have something that somebody sees that particular logo and like, yeah, that's Kevin Van Dam's, or that's Jordan Lee's, or that's Ott DeFoe's. And there's a value in that for sure. And something that, you know, at 21, 22 years old, you don't really quite understand because you're sitting there just trying to catch a bass and like, you just want to fish. But I'm thankful to have some of the people that early on sort of pushed me in the right direction.
I asked about this on the show yesterday, Mark, I think we were talking on air about it. How old are you now, Jacob?
30 years old.
Okay, you're 30. And then, like, in my opinion, the next, like, gap, all those guys are, like, 50 now. Like, Ike and Kevin and Skeet and Edwin, like, you know, upper 40s, 50. Like, is there another gap? Do you see, like, a group of 20-year-olds now? Or is there, like, another gap between, I mean, it's, like, you and Lucas and Lee, and once you start naming them, you're going to miss them all but there's, you know, and I mean, throw Fighter in there and Sal. I mean, there's that group of that you guys are all around that 30 to 35 mark. There's a gap between that next kind of generation of what you call the greats. Like, do you see the next generation coming up? You've been in it long enough.
That's interesting. I mean, I think I look at people that I look back, like like Kyle Welcher's one that comes to mind that I feel like has that mindset of understanding the bass behavior and having that winning mindset. I look at Cole Floyd, you know, phenomenal angler that I feel like is way ahead of his time. There's certain time, but it takes a while to develop that. You don't know who that person or how that angler is going to perform until they get to around that 30-year-old, you know, being 30. Because it's like I feel like there's so much up and down in your career when you're early 20s, mid 20s, because you're still learning. Like you're still trying. I mean, I'm still learning today, but you're still trying to figure out highland reservoirs, natural lakes, you know, this type of grass, that type of grass, you know, Florida, fishing Tennessee River stuff. And your thought process and decision making gets better and better as you make mistakes and you learn as you go. So it's hard to really put a finger on and say this guy is going to be, you know, these group of guys are going to be really unbelievable. But I mean, you look at just points wise. I mean, Cole Floyd in the last couple of years again in the pro circuit side, he's probably way up there consistency wise when you're talking about multiple different kinds of diverse kinds of fisheries.
Hey, on the instant feedback, Andy in Indiana wants to know: are you a multitask guy? In other words, do you know how to do a lot of repairs on the run when you're on the water? Like when something goes wrong with your boat or motor or something like that? Or are you the kind of guy that said, I'll just wait till I get back to the boatyard and the boatyard can take care of it?
I would say on certain things like motor, I would say maybe not. I'm still trying to understand the mercury backwards and forwards. But my electronics, I understand very well. Understand why, you know, so I know like if one of my units goes out or certain things go out in my boat, I know like, hey, you know, I check this XYZ, this wire connected here. For some reason, this is not happening. I know certain things throughout my boat. There's certain things that it takes a little while to learn, but yeah, I try to know, like, you know, I swap my trolling motors out all the time. I, you know, mount a lot of my electronics. I play around with certain things. quite a bit and play with it to where you understand it. If you understand your stuff a little bit better, it's, when things do go wrong, you can, now as far as the big motor and the Mercury goes, like, there's a lot of things that, at that point in time, like me trying to work on something, I don't know if I trust myself.
All right, man. Being one of the superstars, if not one of the top 3 superstars in the game right now, I'm curious, when you're headed to St. Clair here in a couple of weeks, and let's say you have to stop and get gas somewhere in, I don't know, Kentucky, Indiana, wherever it is, how recognizable is the Jacob Wheeler brand now? Are you having more people come up to you wanting autographs, wanting to talk, wanting to chat? And obviously with the truck and boat wrap, yeah, you're going to get some eyes and everything. But what about when you're not in your truck and boat? How recognizable is the Jacob Wheeler brand now with so much success? What is it like now?
I mean, it's crazy to think about it because I don't look at myself any way, shape, or form as an angler that or someone any better than anybody else. I look at myself as just this fisherman, and I enjoy bass fishing, and I love it. It's something that I wanted to do, and I'm living out my dream. But there is some. It's weird when you go and you put your arm around someone and take a picture, and they're shaking. You're like, man, it's okay. Like, calm down. Like, I'm just a dang fisherman. Like, like it is something that. But you also realize how much of an impact you have on somebody's life potentially. Yeah. And I feel like there's a lot of I've learned as I've went of how I some of these younger anglers and some of the people that follow along, and that you can help them out or impact their life in a positive way, and that's something that's very important to me. I think the craziest thing that's ever happened to me was I was driving, I stopped in, it was late at night. I stopped in upstate New York. I stopped at a Wendy's to grab a quick bite. It was like 9:30 at night. And I pull up to this drive-through window, and I look out there, and this lady's like, "Oh my gosh!" And there's like all these like 5 people like standing on the drive-through window. Like, what did I'm like? They're just, because I think that what it was, they were like surprised, like this guy's driving a boat to this like drive-through. I'm like, okay, yeah, guys, I got it. Don't worry. Like, I know I can make this turn right here. I can swing left or whatever. We'll be all right. And because like the inside was closed or whatever, and they're like, "Hey, I'll give you the." She's like, this lady's like freaking out, and I'm like, "What's going?" She's like, "I can't believe this. We watch you on YouTube all the time," and I'm like, "Oh, really?" Yeah, like I'm thinking like they're just surprised I'm driving through this boat, and she's like, if you sign this, you can have the food for free," and I'm like, What? Like, it just threw me off. I'm getting here. I have my wallet at my hand, and I'm like, have my credit card. I'm like, here, and I'm like,
yeah.
It threw me for a loop. And so anyway, I took a picture with her. She was super nice, signed a few things. She jumped out of the drive-through window, and I took a picture in front of my truck.
Wow.
And, it was nuts. But it's something that it was just those certain things. I do think it's been more, the last couple of years, more and more and more. And I don't take that for granted, but I look at it, I'm like, oh, it's hard to comprehend.
Yeah, nice. All right, one more question, then I'll send it to you, Matt. Jacob, obviously being one of the superstars in the game from a business standpoint, your cohesiveness in working with a corporate sponsor in Academy, mm-hmm. What has that been like, and how much input do you truly have in what Academy has going on from a fishing standpoint?
I have a really good relationship with Academy. I've always, talked with them. Everybody there, from the buyers to my bosses, through the marketing team, through social team. I know everybody there, very well, and they're unbelievable to work with. There's not a company that I could tell you right now that I'm more ecstatic to be representing their brand with the people they have there and what they represent to me. They took a chance on me a few years ago, and it's awesome. I'm not going to go all into all that, but I did, and it was important to me. I wouldn't say I have control over anything. I feel like I think they ask me questions that they want my opinion on certain things, whether it's products, whether it's certain things throughout the brand. They definitely come to me, and I appreciate a lot of the opportunity I get to say certain things whether it's a new angler, whether it's whatever it might be, a plan moving forward for a product or whatever it is. Like, I feel like I'm family there, not necessarily like I'm just their angler, you know what I'm saying? And that's something that's huge as you have these groups that, you have partners that you work with in these companies. There's companies that you'll work with as an angler that they're like family, and you would talk, they're friends and their family. And there's companies that you work with that it's just exclusively a partnership, and here's your numbers, and this is what it is, and this is the deliverables, and that's how it goes, and move on. So they're on the opposite. They're on the latter, or the other side of that, with the family side and the friendship. And I mean, it's different. I mean, there's a lot to it, but I'm appreciative of them for sure.
Yeah, and the reason that I asked, just a quick follow-up, is because you see other sports. I do a lot of comparisons of bass fishing to other sports, but you see other industries really not totally rely, but they do utilize the input that professional athletes have on certain products with certain companies when it comes to endorsing that product and the fact that they are representing the brand. So they look for that kind of input. So with this being fishing and obviously being you, I was curious whether or not that was the same situation that takes place in other sports that it does with bass fishing. So it sounds like they do.
Mm-hmm. It's very close to that. Absolutely.
All right. Matt?
You going to catch Ott?
I don't know. I might have to win another one. I mean, it's not in my control, but all I'm worried about is trying to win another tournament. So,
I mean, is that crazy to you? You've won 3 of these things this year, and it's out of your control. Like someone else still controls. We got Odd on tomorrow. I'll ask him the same question about the year he's had, and with you trying to track him down. But like, that's one of the few times that something's actually been out of your control. Like, I mean, he finishes in the top 12, he wins.
I know. I talked to Ott for 30 minutes this morning. We talk all the time, and yeah, I mean, it's just when you're competing against that caliber of anglers, and they push you to be better, and we talked about that this morning. Like, dude, I don't think I would have fished as hard as I did without you catching them as good as you're catching them. And so it's like you push each other to perform at a higher level. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy. Yes, I slipped up at Harris saying it was completely, and it wasn't a decision-making thing. It was just I could not keep them hooked up for whatever reason. And like I actually was fishing the exact stretch that Otter won the tournament on, which is it just was dialing it in and losing them on crankbaits and vibrating jigs and everything else. And so it's like there's certain things that if it's meant to be, it'll happen. But I've sort of made peace with that tournament and just said, hey, all you can do is control what you have in front of you. I obviously this next event, there's a lot of variables with this one with St. Clair. Smallmouth, largemouth could play. You have, St. Clair, the St. Clair River, Detroit River, and Michigan water of Lake Erie all in play. Weather makes a huge difference in what your decisions are. It's going to be a dang nail biter, I got a feeling.
All right. Very nice. Hey, a lot of people on the instant feedback and on the YouTube comments, and I don't know how much you can say, but the fans are really concerned with some of the people and some of the issues that you had to deal with at the last tournament with the COVID situation. What, if any, can you talk about that? And, are your friends doing okay?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, my 2 best buddies, Mark Daniels and Dustin Connell, both opted out to fishing the event due to COVID, and they've talked about it on their socials, and they've sort of, and I've seen Dustin. Dustin went in the hospital for multiple days, had double pneumonia, which this is a thing. I mean, it's no joke. I don't know if he necessarily had the Delta variant or what all is going on. I try to keep up to date on what's going on there. But, if you're having breathing issues, don't hesitate to go to the hospital, because it's to the point where double pneumonia is no joke. Him sitting in there, I remember talking to him and I could just hear, how scared he was. in his voice.
Yeah.
You know? And that scared me. Thankfully, you know, he's out, he's good. He's working towards recovery. He's still not 100% by any means, but I think that it's just a eye-opening experience to understand, you know, what's going on and taking things seriously. For both Mark and myself, him, our whole group, I think we look at it completely differently now.
Yeah. All right, man. My final question. Has this been not only the most successful year for you, which obviously stats speak for themselves, but what about a fun standpoint? Has this been a fun year for Jacob Wheeler?
I mean, I'm always having fun. I don't stop. If I'm reeling in bass, it's hard not to have fun. I mean, that's what I love to do. It's been a lot of fun for me. I definitely take my job seriously, but I also don't think for a second I'm not having a great time out there competing. And it's a challenge to me just to figure those fish out every day. I enjoy seeing different things transpire throughout events and learning little intricate details that I did not know. And I realized certain things this year that I've learned, and I'm like, holy smokes, I can't believe I didn't know this. And I can't believe I didn't know that. And wow, that's something that's completely different than I've ever seen throughout my career. And this is probably the reason why. So there's stuff that to me is the most fun. Understanding more details and understanding more about fish behavior is I love that. I enjoy the heck out of that. It's something that it's constantly changing and fish are adapting from pressure. And it's that's one of my most fun things to try to figure out. But yes, I'm definitely having fun.
All right, Matt.
That's all I got.
He's out of question. Dude, we could do 3 hours with you, but obviously
I know
that's kind of overkill. But man, once again, thanks for taking time out to be on the show. Hey, maybe we talk to you after St. Clair. How about that?
Yeah, man, let's do it. Hopefully, man, I told Audrey, I'm going to slash his tires. That sucker can't come to the ramp. You ain't coming, man. I'm like, give me a chance, you sucker.
Jeez. All right. As Matt mentioned, we have him on the show tomorrow, Ott Defo. What message would you like for us to pass along to Ott tomorrow?
Tell Ott, don't slip.
All right, man. Great stuff, Jacob. Thanks, man. Best of luck to you. And we will definitely talk to you after St. Clair, man.
Absolutely, guys. I appreciate y'all.
All right, man. Good luck.
Later.
All right. There you have it, folks. Jacob Wheeler. Really good stuff, man.
Yeah, he always brings it.
Yeah. I like the point that he made when I was talking about, did you see any of that video when it was a little rough out there? He said, hey, look, you're either going to do it or you're not.
No, that resonated with me a lot.
Yeah, because I know at Oneida during practice, didn't you kind of experience some?
No, during the tournament.
During the tournament?
Out there, on day one, here's the main, I literally understood what he was talking about. On day one, I got out there, I was like, I got to figure out how to get 5 bites. I could hold, it was a pain in the butt, I could fish it effectively. On day two, I was surfing on top of him, going 1.7 miles an hour and filling the boat up every time I tried to turn around and slow down, and I only caught 1 fish out there and stayed out there for 6 out of the 9 hours I was on the water, right? Now, fortunately, I pulled the plug in time to come and to get bit more. But in hindsight, I should have, and you have to live through it. You have to suck through it surfing at 1.7 miles an hour, making backward casts with your drop shot to try, you know what I mean? You have to live through that once to realize that's not effective. We need to go figure out something else. But it was very interesting when he said that. Yeah, you either, when you're there, it doesn't affect you and you're doing it, or you realize it's affected me too much and you pull the plug on it. So.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, let's do this. Let's take our final break, come back, and we will wrap things up here on a Monday. Sounds good?
Sounds good to me.
All right. Be right back, everybody. Stay tuned.
You know what works. Now you need a bunch of them so you don't run out on your next fishing trip. The Big Bite Pro Packs feature 25 baits per pack at a price far below that of having to buy 5 packs of regular baits. Now the Pro Pack has a big brother, the Mega Pack. The Mega Pack features 100 of your favorite baits
With these, one bag is usually plenty to get through the day. It helps me stay organized, helps me save money, helps me catch more fish.
All of us on the Pro Tournament Trail use Gamakatsu hooks. Why? Because they are absolutely the best.
It's not about how many bites you get.
It's how many you put in the boat.
Gamakatsu makes hooks for every fishing style.
We didn't come this far to lose fish.
Did you?
For more information, visit gamakatsu.com.
Let's face it, fishing electronics are no longer an afterthought. They've become a necessity. And at the Bass Tank, our experts match you with the right electronics, provide professional installation, and educate you to help maximize your catching results while providing support along the way. Because let's be honest, it's about catching, not just fishing. And when you're ready for better results, join the Bass Tank team. Visit us today on Facebook or go to thebasstank.com.
Preparation is key to success. And that preparation starts well before you ever hit the water. You're only as strong as your connection to the fish, and your line is that critical connection. Confidence in your line every minute of every day on the water is a necessity, and failure, it's not an option. Sunline makes the fluorocarbon, nylon, and braided lines to give you the strength to guarantee your confidence.
The Little John family of crankbaits designed by top tour pro John Cruz have excelled at catching bass in any condition for years. They all feature a flat-sided design and paint jobs that are seldom seen in mass production bait. The Little John family also expands with new rattling versions of the Little John 50 and Little John 50 MD. Both of these baits are proven fish catchers that will now be available in rattling versions for stained and muddy water. They feature the same great action and diving depths as the original 50 and MD sizes.
The Ned rig. What rod should I be using with the Ned rig? My favorite is the Denali Lithium multi-spin rod. It's our 7'4" length, great Ned rig rod. It's got a great sensitive tip on it. It's long enough where I can make long casts, which you're usually fishing clear water with a Ned rig, and it's got enough backbone to get those fish in. So check it out, Denali Lithium Series 7'4" multi-spin.
All right, we are back, wrapping up a Monday. Once again, want to thank Jacob Wheeler. There's some good nuggets in there, Matthew, in that interview.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, who you picking? We got Ott on tomorrow. Wheeler or Ott?
Well, I mean, it's a 3-horse race. If you're going to throw that in, you need to throw in Ayler, too. Because Ayler's not that far behind Wheeler. The Wheeler's not far behind Ott. I have no idea. I mean, it's hard. I mean, it's hard to go against Ott because he's so consistent and it has to just finish in the top 12.
Yeah. It's gonna be fun to watch. All right, man. What else? Anything else in the fishing world? I did see a story, and I'll try to find it for tomorrow's show about how boat sales are just they're blowing it out of the water. Every company. Yeah. There was a report, I think it was in Boating International magazine or something that I got a feed from through this email distribution that they have. But, things are really, really, really good in the boating industry. And, prices seem to have stabilized for now. And what's going to be interesting, this is the time of the year where the new models are starting to come out, and we'll see if there are any additional promotions that are going to be ran toward the latter part of the year, second half of this year. And we'll see if the momentum will continue into 2022. I don't know, man. It's still amazing. I think how this industry and how things are going, not only just in the boating industry, but everything involved in the fishing industry, the momentum just doesn't seem to have dropped, at least from a sales standpoint, maybe a little bit in an interest standpoint because of what went down in 2020 with the COVID situation. But, man, you talk about being a battler. This industry has definitely caught hold, and the momentum continues here in 2021. All right, man, what are you doing? Getting ready? What do you got, 2 weeks until you leave? Is that right?
Yeah, 2 weeks until you leave for New York and Thousand Islands. So.
Yeah, and then you're going to be gone for 3 weeks, right? Is that right? Because you got a week in between, and then you get another open.
Yep.
So Matt will be on the road. I will be following up with people. I know a lot of requests to get Bo back on the show. I'm going to try and get some more guests on, not in studio unless you have relatives in the Oklahoma City area like Bo did. But we'll get some of those people on as guest hosts and go from there. So that's about all I got, Matthew. Anything else?
Nope.
You got nothing?
I got nothing else, man.
All right. It's very quiet. Very quiet. Very quiet out in the driveway. I haven't looked at it. Hopefully. What if I go out there and it's still like a mess and they left a bunch of stuff?
Send me a picture of what it looked like before.
All right. I'll do that.
All right.
So everybody out there, thank you once again for all the feedback and comments. And we'll be back at the same time tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Central, right here with Ott Defo. So everybody be safe. That's it. We're out of here.